So we're calling the meeting, the 2019-2020 budget public hearing. Roll call.
Austriaco? Here. Collins? Here. Coyle? Here. Lee?
Here.
Owen? Yusuf Abramson?
Here.
Bessler?
Here. Okay, Mary?
Okay, the purpose of the public hearing is to allow the community to provide any commentary on both the NSERV, which is the North Suburban Educational Region for Vocational Education. That is a cooperative that District 207 serves as fiscal agent for, as well as the District 207 budget tonight. Both of these budgets went on display July 1st. Notice of their availability at the Administration Center, and then we also provide them online and at the libraries, was in that notification. So they've been on public display for over a month. The NSERV budget is set to be acted on this evening, as joint agreements in the state of Illinois must be filed with the state of Illinois prior to the end of August. The District 207 budget, we allow an additional month to take any comments received from the public into account as we develop the final budget, and that is set as an action item at the September meeting. So it's appropriate at this time for any members of the public to provide the board with any commentary on the budget.
Have we received any?
We have not received any.
Is there anybody present that wants, any questions, any discussion? Okay, can we adjourn the meeting? Thank you. All right, call to, we take 4 minutes, because our regular scheduled meeting is set for 6:05.
We don't.
No, it's just an invitation, it's just a title, there's no action.
Okay.
Yeah. What? Yes. No, no, I agree. So I think, is that.
On the regular agenda? Yeah, I would imagine it's what it is. Okay. I think Laura Cook is in.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it was just now. Okay. I would, take care of business first. No, I'm just a taxpayer.
Oh, great, yeah, thanks for coming tonight. If you need anything, let me know, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Friday. So it's like, we started Saturday morning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, it has been. With, you have a copy of it? So
Yeah, that's what I was trying to tell you.
this is it right here. These are the changes.
And I would like to, I
Right.
don't know, we too long.
Okay?
For future reference, you have my email address now.
Yes, exactly. Excellent, thank you.
Well, just, yeah, like something like that. Well, I was trying to think of ways, because you know, I'm moving some meetings to the switch for the school. And what I would have been meaning to do anyway.
Call to order,
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Austriaco? Here. Collins? Here. Coyle? Here. Lee?
Here.
Owen? Yusuf Abramson? Here. Bessler?
Here. Any public comments? Okay, update from the superintendent?
Okay, really quickly, I am going to run through a board update for the goals that are up for adoption tonight. And this is some of the work that we did at the Model Schools Conference. It's a very, very abbreviated version, starting with our goal update. The 4 broad goals are very similar, if not identical, to the ones that have been present. We have goals in the instructional program, we have goals for financial leadership, for communication, and then situational leadership, which is dealing with things as they come situationally. For the past few years, the goals have been really weighted more in the instructional program. It's the center piece of what we do to improve the lives of our students. So this year, front and center is our work in equity. We've been doing some pretty deep work in equity for a number of years, and all of our trend lines are really, really good. And I want to give credit to Dr. McMahon, since she's come to our district, has, I would say, given us a little bit more focus and some push, some needed push in this work. Kelly Morrissey, who is working on taking care of Baby Calvin tonight, has given us really, really good work, and then actually a number of other members. The overwhelming feedback in the push that we've had for the last couple of years has been that, thank you for doing this. I mean, it's given rise to some voices in our district that probably needed to have rise, and it's pushed many of us into positions and into challenging our own thinking in ways that probably we needed to do. If we're going to close those final hurdles, I think we need to continue to be pushed in some ways. Mike has been a big instrument in helping really set the tone for this work. I would say Maine East High School, probably maybe a decade in front of the other 2 buildings on this work. If you go back to the very beginnings of some of the key work that they've done in PBIS, he's been a big push in that. So all of the staff members who have done a lot of work here, I think it's really clarified and risen and put in prominence a big goal. And again, this district, I think people forget, it wasn't until 2004 in this district, relatively recent, that we had our first majority minority high school. And since then, 2 of our 3 are majority minority high schools. So our trend lines are very clear in terms of the demographics of our district. And I think if we would be remiss if we weren't thinking about the actual students that we serve and the lives that they come from, the backgrounds that they come from. And so this is an important piece, and that's why it's listed first. The other thing that's significant about our goals this year is, in a way, again, our leadership team really pushed this. We really developed these goals together as a team, and so there was a lot more input throughout the leadership team. Our MTA president was a part of this process. So I think it better reflects the mindset of the people within the district, and I think that's the important thing, to the extent that my goals or the board's goals are everybody else's goals in the organization. I think that's a really healthy way to think about the work. Our integrated career services, I could have easily put this first. I'll show you some scale. I've got a graph that was added late to the goals if you looked on the digital version. My opinion, this is the most important work that we're doing. And our leadership team has heard us say this, but if we can achieve our goal to get it right for every kid, so if we meet everybody's child at the door, we know as much about them as we can, we have an individual learning and career plan for them, we help them find their why in the world, we help them find what it is they want to do to change the world, and we can connect that to a way for them to get into a career that pays a livable wage. I don't think there's a better form of equity work that anybody is going to do in America. I spent some time before the meeting with Paula, and I'll give a sense, to the board here in a minute. We are literally inventing this work. We're asking a research question that's never been asked, and we're seeking an answer that's never been answered. And that is, how many times would you have to build, and when you're modeling for iterative, relevant career experiences for students, how many times would you have to build, you know, if you did that for 2,000 kids even for 5 years, what's the mean number you had to build for? When we started this work, we just said 1761. That was one for each of our seniors. We knew it wasn't enough, but we were so far away that, you know, we knew we had a lot of runway. And we set a goal to get there by 2022. Well, we passed 2,000 last year. So the updated goal was going to set a goal to get to 4,000. We know that's not the right number. We don't know what the right number is. This is a question that literally has never been asked by a school district. We are seeking a question that's never been asked, and looking for an answer that's never been answered. Our high-impact instruction, I could have made this first. A long time ago when I was in Sean's job, most fun job I've ever had, by the way, when everything was about instruction and curriculum, you know, we really set some things in motion to attend to the variable that matters more than anything else, and that is the teacher variable. It's literally, from a research perspective, the most important thing that we can do to have great schools, and that is attend to having a great teacher in every single classroom. We're entering year 6 of all-in coaching. Maybe the only district in America that does all-in coaching, and certainly the only district in America that's 6 years into it. So our class of 2020 will be our 3rd consecutive class to have gone through high school for 4 years with every teacher, every year, and instructional coaching plan. It's pretty remarkable. And then next year, it's just Wednesday. And so that is the foundation for how do you evolve as an organization, how do you reach this concept of collective efficacy. Well, you coach everybody up, and especially the adults working with students, you keep coaching them up, and it's about creating a true learning organization. And I think it's reflective, in my opinion, of probably the best goals that we've done, because there's a lot of voice throughout the organization in these goals, reflecting, I think, the work that we've done to help really grow the capacity of all of our teachers. Social emotional learning. Again, I'm going to go back east and talk about the foundational work probably 10 years ago that set on this. But this is, again, about respecting, about attending to each of the elements, whether it be social, emotional, learning, or behavioral issues with students. In this space, we run a daily early morning system. Perhaps, certainly one of the few, if maybe not the only high schools that do this, and this is a medical model. So we isolate variables and we track every day. The two that have the most impact, if you track attendance and you track grades, and you intervene, we run a simple red light, green light system. Most of our kids are in the green light area, but the kids that fall in that red light, we are intervening, and we're checking on them. We're doing a wellness check. What's going on? Social, emotional, learning, and behavior. We just haven't had any of those things. And we have the most refined system we've ever had. It exists right now, and all of us can imagine how to make it 10x better. So that's what I'm most proud of, is our leadership team really sees that as good as we are, and we're in a better place than most districts, we have a lot of runway to get a lot better in this space. And that's just really, it's that reframing from school that most of us attended, which was, it's on you, kid, to really being responsive in real time and having the wraparound services to make sure the kids are on track. And again, as our population gets more needy, our skill level has to keep getting better. And then finally, an area that Sean has really led us on, concept-based education, which is really a big reimagination tool, that when you can master a skill, you can move on, so it isn't tied to time as much as mastery. And in this particular area, and we put it last intentionally, we have a commitment to try to, go slow to go fast. We're not in a rush here. We want to learn. We want to use it as a laboratory. We don't expect any of this work to be perfect, but we have taken the approach that we're not going to let it try to be perfect and we'll get better. So the foundation of our work is our coaching plans. And again, we added the 5th coaching plan last year, where we're coaching student teachers in a partnership with Northwestern and National Lewis. We're going to grow that thing. We think that's the future of student teaching. That is a research topic and will be a larger research topic. The premise being that if student teachers are coached instead of the supervising teachers are leading the room, they'll be more successful when they start. Why did we do it? We did it for a single single purpose, and that is to help our teachers have leadership opportunities. We believe that our teachers are better having coached other people, and there's good research behind that. This is the linear regression that we've shown many, many times, that as our poverty line basically tripled since the turn of the 21st century, if you did a linear regression, this was your predicted mean score. This is our actual. We have actually increased against this poverty line. This is what happens in nature. This red line, you have a negative inverse relationship to rising poverty. That's what happens if you just went to Acme High School. That's what you could predict to happen. We beat that. I am convinced that the only way you can do that is to improve your instructional program. We have leaned into that work like nobody in America. Nobody. This is that concept of collective efficacy. It is a standardized effect size, standard deviation of 1.57. It is the single largest thing that you could do to really move schools forward. And some of the elements are listed there about what the characteristics are. But I would say this: if you had a school and you had 100 teachers and 50 of them are super good and 50 of them are just kind of okay, it's probably pretty normal. And if you can change that to make it 80 of them are super good or 90 of them are super good, the more that you can get each of those teachers to be operating at a really, really high level and to be learners that realize I can keep getting better at my craft, the better your school is going to be. And that's the work that we really aspire to do. And that's why the adult learning really matters so much. This is a graphic that we built this year, again, with a lot of help, but it really talks about all of the work that we do. Our multi-tier system of support is our framework. Adult learning is a piece of framework. And then the work in equity in our career services, in our competency-based education, our social emotional learning, and in high-impact instruction. Mike developed this slide for our presentation at Model Schools. It's a perfect metaphor. MTSS really is our central nervous system. It's that responsive system where you're just trying to pay attention to every student every day to give them exactly what they need to be successful, to intervene when necessary. And the goal with kids is always this. You want your own children to do increasingly complex work with a decreasing amount of support, because then they become autonomous learners. That's what we aspire to. But you've got to create those conditions where you are allowing them to increase their skills, to try things, to learn from failure, all of those kind of things. Meantime, what you don't want to do is just have a kid fall off, bad off the radar, and no one is paying attention to them. I don't know if we can get perfect at this, but we can get a lot better at this. Equity. We have been in pursuit of equity since as long as I've been here anyway. When I got here, if you went backwards to 2005 when I got here, this line was about here. And the reason that we only had about 32% of our kids getting in is because we had a structural mechanism set up to make sure that the doors were locked on the kids. We didn't open those doors unless you had a high enough test score in the 8th grade. And those test scores are directly related to one's household income. So we were doing what the conventional thing, and still exists in many places. We were taking our most advantaged students and we were advantaging them even more. We were taking our least advantaged students and we were not advantaging them. So we had it backwards. Backwards isn't the right word. we had a messed up system. We had a system that wasn't about enriching every kid. So that's our slope. We're not done. These are students that are enrolled in at least one accelerated dual credit or advanced placement courses, which are our 2 college courses. We teach over 60 college courses right now. We really are trying to build a framework where students can get an associate's degree before they leave us. We're pretty close to it. This is our work in AP. And again, same structural things. We locked the doors here, and then we really unlocked them, and we decided we were going to try to get to a challenge index of 3.0 by 2020. We achieved that in 2018. We will probably pivot away from AP, not altogether, but pretty significantly, because of the value of dual credit to most of our students in the state of Illinois. If you take an English 101 course in our classes, it's guaranteed credit at any Illinois university, any of them, and that's in law. So we don't have that for AP courses. This is our most recent trend lines with dual credit. And again, I give Sean a lot of credit to really leading this slope, which you can see has had dramatic increases, and if we, could model out 5 years forward, this will be where our growth is. This is an equity trend line. You can see what we've been doing here. We're moving in the right directions. This gap here, this is about hearts and minds now. And that's the harder, more detailed work, and that's why the work that we've done in equity is so important. It's essential, it's fundamental. We're at the level now where you're confronting yourself. You're confronting institutional bias that may exist. And that's a lot harder work to do. I'm really proud of our team. I'm proud of the voices that I've seen emerge on this. And I think for us to get where we want to be, we have to really try to erase the rest of the work that we've got to do in equity. This gives you a sense of our career pathway. So this was the original goal. It's been in my goals for several years where we said we want to get to 1761. Well, here's our performance. In 2019, we crossed 2,000. So here's the new chart that's in my updated goals. We set a goal to get to 4,000 by 22. Here's the beauty of really big questions. We don't know what the answer is. We truly do not know what the answer is. But we're in pursuit of trying to find the answer. This is the most important work we're doing. This is actually the most innovative work we're doing because it stands alone in a way that pretty much everything else we've done maybe didn't stand alone. It's that significant. And it's also that important because this is about really changing the trajectory of kids' lives. Every other week, we hear a story in the newspaper about how tilted the playing system is, how the field is for our kids. The most recent one in Illinois about the math things. 5,000 kids in Illinois last year were eligible for math grants and didn't get them. 5,000. Maybe some of them were our kids. So the playing field, this is how you address it. This is how you address it. Really advanced work to try to meet every kid where they are and take them where they want to go. And that's a big, big lift. It requires not just the analytic. We're using 3 analytic tools to help do that, but it's the reinvention of our staff's work. That's the hard work. And I'll remind the board, that's the work that creates dissonance. So be prepared.
Can I ask a question?
Can you wait a minute?
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. I got one more, I got one more slide. I'm gonna finish up. Finally, and I'm ending here. This is really it. This graphic, I think, really perfectly captures and illustrates what it is we aspire to do. It's all of the ways that we wrap around and support students to be a great learner and to help them find their why in life, help them find their purpose in life, so that we truly can get it right for every single student. And I do mean when I say this is the epitome of equity in the work that we're doing. And I'm really proud of our team for helping put these goals together and presenting them to the board in instructional conduct. There you go.
First of all, this is awesome. I'm so happy to hear all this, and you did a great job with it. But I have 2 questions. One is, so when we talk about career experiences, you give a total number of career experiences or total number of business cards. But one of the things that I think that we should look at too is the percentage of kids. I mean, there are like percentage that we have of kids having a career experience. Because there are kids, I mean, I know there are kids who have 3 career experiences.
Yes.
And some that haven't taken advantage of it yet. And so I think in order to judge real progress on that, you need to have some kind of metric that would define.
So that's the work that we're in right now. So part of the sub goals, if you read my goals, when you see this, the work about the 4-year checklist, this is the hard work that's going to take place over the next 2 years. Because
I didn't see that in the goal.
yeah. So the 4-year checklist is basically, if we go back to MTSS, the bottom tier 1, that's what are you doing for everybody, whether it's an adult or a student. So a tier 1 strategy is going to be this 4-year checklist, so that the student that comes through, so if you're a freshman, this is the work we're doing in the next year, so we're going to guarantee that every student gets that pathway to get those. This is built, this is under construction, so that every student gets that, and within the next 2 years, we'll have the 2.0 checklist. We had a checklist that now we actually have to implement it, we're updating it. So within the next 2 years, we're building exactly what you're saying, and
I mean, you're gonna incorporate the metric.
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
So that's the research question, Terry, is if you, that's why we don't know the answer to this.
Right.
Because to do what we want to do, to answer your question, we have to, first of all, we have to guarantee that kids have even one, and we have to be responsive if we provoke the responsible kid, we get them an accounting internship, and their response is, oh my God, I hate this. Good, you didn't go spend money going to school to be an accountant, and because you didn't know whether you liked it or not. And so, but what we want to know is, if the response was, I don't like it, well, what else have you identified that you're interested in? Can we get you into that? And so the question is, if you were building, and let's say you tried to get to 90% of your kids walking in a high school going, I know exactly why I'm going to IBEW, to University of Illinois, to MIT, I know why I'm going, I know what I want to do, I know what my mean starting salary is, we've modeled the cost of this education, we've done a return on investment look by zip code where I want to work. We have a big build in front of us. This is a decade of work in front of us. Hard work, easily. It's that complex. It's that way. But to get there, you got to begin.
Right, I just wanna make sure that we have some kind of metric to capture that.
We do. Trust me, I have
Okay.
pushed really hard on this specific issue. But so it will be scorecarded at the counselor level, because the counselor has a caseload. So this 4-year checklist will reside at that counselor level. Now, other support staff, we still have our career coordinators to help build the business footprint and get the various levels of experience. The other thing we're going to ask in the next 2 years is that every classroom have one relevant career experience in their classroom once a year, because that adds a ton of power. Sometimes it may be, I'm in a geology class and my teacher's talking about what a geologist does, and which is exactly what happened to my nephew. A light bulb goes on for a kid, so we add power by doing that.
That's great, that's
Okay.
wonderful. All right, one more question. I think that's the stuff. Okay, this is awesome. This is so much more than, in terms of ratings. I'm gonna go to one of our topics that always comes up about ratings of schools. And this is so much more powerful than
A
anything.
million times more powerful.
A million, yeah, I mean, 20 million times. But the thing that I'm wondering is there any push from here, I mean, a lot of the stuff's so innovative, to push some of the people to use these metrics for ratings? To publicize it enough so that US News and World Report goes to teacher equity or goes to career experiences, as opposed to that crazy challenge index. I mean, to me, the challenge index is so,
It's a stupid arms race.
it is, and it's.
Hypocritical and ironic on a lot of different levels. Yes, I released an essay this spring on this very topic, and I'm probably going to rewrite it and re-release it for that very reason. That's another longer play, and you don't unwind conventional wisdom. in a
No,
short amount
I
of
realize
time.
that, but you started by getting it out, and, I mean, and part of it's tooting your own horn to do that. But I mean, also, if there are things to, I don't know, hiring a consultant to write a paper on how good it is. I mean, because it's so much better. And I think that you should be getting credit for it, I mean, and your team should get credit for it.
Do we know, do they accept input on their criteria? And if so, how? Because that could be a separate topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a much deeper topic. It's a much deeper topic. I don't want to go on a rant right now, so
No,
I'm just
okay.
going to.
But no, I think it's important, because I agree with you, but then what is the process and how do we become part of the process? So I think we need to find that out.
Yeah, it's a much longer play and involves a whole lot of more moving parts, including a whole political structure layer over the top of this. And so,
No, I'm just saying it to start somewhere.
No, I
mean,
agree.
because
I absolutely agree.
It's such great work.
Oh, no, we'll find it out. We'll talk about that after. Well, thank you, Ken, because I think that's excellent. I especially like the equity piece. We've been building, like you said, we've been doing it, we've been building for it. Many of us ran on it. I just think it's an important work that's
well,
highlighted.
that's the value of having a really good team, and that
Well, the
pushes
team
us.
was part of it too.
Yeah.
I would like to see those full because some of those graphics are great. Can you share that with the whole board for the presentation? And then some of those graphics that I think you said, Mike, or some of the, all the team created, I would love, can we share that on our website? Because I think those graphics are outstanding. Would it encapsulates the whole approach? I think that's something great to have on
People
our
have been
website.
stealing them.
I haven't seen it on our website. Has it been on our website? Because I have not seen that.
I don't know if we did the model schools or not, but we could put the model schools, that's. a
No,
lot
the
of
whole
those are
child,
from
you know,
model.
the whole approach to the
Yeah,
child,
sure.
the holistic approach, because I would share that.
One quick question, and I agree, it's really awesome, it's really incredible and groundbreaking for what you guys are doing. On the, when you handed out, on the action steps that apply to all goals, under ICS, Integrated Career Services, we have number 6, increase the number of students participating in relevant career experience by 10%. I'm just curious, what's the percentage of participation is that we have right now?
Well, so we're at 2,000, so
That's
a 10%
2,000.
increase would be about 200 kids. And again, it's hard to set these kind of goals with any kind of precision, because sometimes you find some lanes and you have giant scores. Actually, one of the problems we're gonna try to solve this year is we actually think we're underreported. And I'll give you one example of how it's underreported. We have a lot of teachers that are actually doing relevant career experiences that we aren't accounting for. And we have to wrap our arms around what those numbers are and not only understand what they are, but try to define, are there some sort of standardized things that so we have a teacher at West that does an advanced writing class, takes kids down to a publishing house in the city. They need a publisher, they need some writers, and he's been doing that for a long, long time. In my opinion, that's a relevant career experience, a really good career experience. But first of all, identifying all the places where that exists, and then deciding, okay, this program has the following elements, this one has this one. What are sort of the elements that we would want to have present to say, your trip, there's your relevant, your authentic career experience, and it might be adding one thing to it. So we need to, that's the work that we're doing. This is really, really, really dense and complex work. It is incredibly complex, and it's the biggest thing because it is a reimagination. I mean, I did a keynote for the Career and Tech Ed Association this summer. The title of it is, Why Before Where? We have been built for where? Get you through high school, get you enrolled somewhere, go have a good life. It's not enough, the bar's too low. And so the solving for why is a big solve. So I think that's part of what we're trying to do is continue to refine some of the language around this. And we've got a really, really good team doing really, really good work in this.
Want to ensure the integrity around the data, to make sure it's evidence-based.
Yep.
Burdensome, right? So I know Sean's done a ton of work on that, capturing
Well,
not 4 years out and
yeah.
8 years out, and what we're getting reported, we don't have a lot of that too often, so, but we've increased that, if I recall correctly, our ability to do that. Just getting data with integrity is always difficult, so. But we're becoming a primary data source in this, not only leaders in the space, but a primary data source, which I think is really influential and impressive.
Well, that's, I think it's really great to hear the word underreported. It's supposed to be overreported. So it really would be nice to actually have really good stats on that, so thank you.
And it's like anything else that you do that is either innovative or pivoting. We've been at this for 6 or 7 years now. And it takes that long for light bulbs to go on with people, unfortunately. And you know what, the interesting thing, so one of the values of District 07 is that our teachers stay and they retire here and they don't go anywhere. But a lot of them then have their own kids and go through this in their own schools and start realizing, oh, now I get it. And that, that understanding from a parent point of view is critical. And I've seen a lot of that happen with our staff where, because at the end of the day, you want your staff to own this and understand. Because it's a significant, it wasn't that long ago where our job was get you through high school, get you enrolled somewhere, and that was it. This is a much bigger responsibility, trying to figure out what your kid really, really wants to do with his or her life and help find a pathway to do that. It's a much, much harder thing, much, much harder way to do school.
And in a purposeful, cost-efficient way.
Yes.
That's the trifecta of that, that's what's so impressive. So, thank you. we'll move on to that, and we'll share that PowerPoint report. And any updates from any other board members?
Just want to quickly share about the presentation that we had for that is number very wonderful information to share. And along that presentation, we did mention about the teachers, special college for the teachers to get the best results from. That's our strategy today. And talk to the dealers about they talk about the teacher shortage. And also last month, the journal, the newspaper, the magazine, they were also talking about nationwide we are having a crisis on teacher shortage, especially for special ed, substitute, and so on. And throughout the night, just recently looking at the support staff resignation, just looking at this, about 2 teachers who sent a resignation will be hired, like say, year and 2 years within a year. But the reason is that because they're living pretty far away and they found the job close by, so that's why it's kind of. Last month, looking at the resignation, I think there's about 2 other additional teachers who sent a resignation, and they also did higher than that in about 2 years or so.
Are you sure you're not looking at teacher assistants?
Could be teacher assistant or whoever that shown as a support staff resignation. We
So-
have teachers who.
So what that is a lot of our teachers, we have 2 types of teacher assistants. We have some of whom who don't have teaching licenses, and those tend to stay with us a long time. But we hire a lot of young, newly certified teachers who just graduated, don't have a teaching job, but they turn over very quickly. And so a lot of them right now are taking jobs. We knew that going in, so they may do academic support.
I see.
So a young English teacher who's a TA, they get offered a teaching job, we're gonna lose them. And we knew that,
Okay,
and that's a calculus that we're willing to accept.
Okay, yeah, in this case, yes, they are, one was mathematics teacher assistant, the other one special education teacher assistant, so one or.
So to your point, I mean, there's a demand for them out there, so we only maybe keep them a year or 2 and they go get jobs.
So just like, okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know, but, my just kind of question, is that how is our district, kind of situation regarding the teacher shortage overall? Are we good, are we better at, or are we having issues like other regional district, facing the same, teacher shortage?
So-
concerns or problems?
So we are probably, if you graphed all of America, I would say we are in the most privileged part of America in terms of being able to attract teachers. We hired about 25 new teachers this year. They started from an original pool of 2,300. We have an HR director who has been really innovative in the use of video technology to do interviews virtually anywhere. We had one of our new teachers is from France, and they conducted a couple of rounds of interviews on video, not from France, but was working in France. And so we, I think, have innovative strategies to try to solve for that. We're also in the suburb of Chicago. We have a higher than average pay scale for the rest of the nation. We're in the realm of suburban Chicago. That doesn't hurt. Plus, we're in a high population area. That doesn't hurt. But that said, I think, I worry about the larger trend, but that's actually somewhat related to our other topics, and it's a much, much bigger conversation.
Okay. Any other board updates?
I have one.
Sure.
And I just want to congratulate Dr. Mike Pressler, who was nominated by a community member to be a McCaff community hero.
Oh.
And, I don't have the list to read it, but a lot of it was based on Mike's career experience of being in the fine arts and in music and influencing all of the kids' lives in terms of giving them other things to do than drugs. And that was a very positive, it was a great recommendation, so congratulations, Mike.
How long were you at Maine South and how long were you at Maine East?
13 years, and starting my 15th year at East.
Yes. you very much.
And I also wanted to mention that we have our community hero benefit coming up on September 19th of this year, and everybody's invited.
The one thing I would say to the whole board, our opening day is this Friday at 8 a.m. at West. Excuse me if you're able to attend, I know a lot of you are busy, but